We're back where my killer tape at in season 2, episode 10, which technically doesn't mean it's 30 episodes. We're actually 31 episodes in when you count the holiday special. Haha. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about why, like, those self-help things, those things get on my nerves, man. We're going to talk about how kombucha is nasty. And we're going to talk about why you should be watching Black Lightning. And why we keep blaming social media for people being antisocial. Like, why do we keep doing that? We're going to continue our discussion about domestic violence. We're going to bring back our old segments of, atheism, health, and how to approach women. So check us out again for episode 10 of season 2. Word up!
I like the rhymes.
All of us are born with the miraculous ability to determine the direction from which sounds approach us.
Let us venture into new and uncharted land.
People get shook up, when I'm introduced as God.
You got that good hair, too. You're the first one out there with a dashiki talking that crap.
It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
I pull up, hop out, air out, made it look sexy. They won't take me out my element, nah, take me out my element.
Yo, for this podcast, for this episode, I'm drinking this, Johnny Longboil. Yo, shout out to the homie Brandy Brown girl for this. Actually, shout out to my girl PJ. She the one that hit me to this. She be hitting me to mad stuff. But anyway, this is from Lock 27, which is a local brew next to us in Centerville, Ohio. It's actually very fruity. It's really good. I'm loving this joint, man. I'm gonna have to get me a growler of this, but it's perfection, B. Word.
It's all a game. It's all a game.
We living in some wild times, yo, for real. And it doesn't feel like it's gonna get any better. That being said, I ask and implore you all to check on your folks, check up on them, call them, see how they doing, pop in on a visit. Well, call them first, make sure you can visit, pop in on a visit, because you never know what folks are going through. And, it just, and a lot of times, I'm not saying that you're going to swoop in and change their life. I'm just saying that it feels good to know that people care about you. It really does. And it'll change your attitude. So do that, man. Check in on people. Make sure they all right. And do that because we living in some wild times. Yo, I remember, and I can't remember if it was Trigga Da Gambler featuring Smooth Da Hustla or Smooth Da Hustla featuring Trigga Da Gambler. I can't remember. But anyway, there was a song that came out back in the 90s called Broken Language. Oh, man, that joint was crazy. And I remember, like, when that joint came out, like, because this is before the internet. Before social media, I should say. And, like, we didn't have, like, Twitter or all that. But, like, I remember when that song came out and that beat, and how everybody was like playing it. Everybody was like playing it. And then like people were doing like freestyles off of it on the radio. And I remember like writers in the source, like actually making their own quotes from it and everything. Like, yo, that was a dope song, man. Shout out to Smooth Da Hustla and Trigga Da Gambler for that joint. And Smooth Da Hustla had an album. The album was pretty dope. I remember copying that album. And I know his brother, because that was his actually physical brother, Trigga Da Gambler. And he came out with a couple of joints and everything. But I don't think he ever released the album. But anyway, it was a dope single that came out in the 90s and not just Broken Language. And the reason why I want to bring that up is because I know there's this local crew out here, a spoken word crew called Underdog Academy. They got a joint coming out called Broken English. And every time I see their post, I think about Broken Language. And I thought it was dope because like it demonstrates how like they changed in that song. They change their rhyme patterns, they change their deliveries and their flows, and they go back and forth. And it's just a really dope song, man. Like, if you get a chance to look that up, especially you youngins, go look up Broken Language. I don't even remember if they had a video for it. They probably did. So check it out, man. Man, it just brings back so many memories. Word. Yo, shout out to the homie Steph of the Dope Science Show. She interviewed me. Actually, we kind of had a conversation on episode 33 of the Dope Science Show. Check it out. It's on SoundCloud. I'm going to put the show link, the links in the show links, right? So you can check it out, man. It was a really dope conversation. I appreciate it. It's probably one of the reasons why I love podcasting so much is because it's really, people really have conversations on there. And it doesn't lend to a radio format. I have a friend of mine who wants to do it. And he comes from the radio. He's been doing radio for years and he's trying to figure it out. And it's kind of like, because he's trying to do a radio format and it doesn't lend itself to that. People have more time to do stuff, to have deeper conversations, to ask deeper questions. So we talk about everything from Black Panther to capoeira to nanites to biohacking to even abroad. We recommend for those that are trying to do capoeira. So definitely check it out. Thank you, Seth.
I think Prince should run first on this one. I think so too. I think Prince should run first on this one. I think so too.
Yo, B trying to get me to really like kombucha, B. And let me say this, man. Kombucha is nasty, B. It's nasty. Yo, it's funny, man. Y'all funny, man, because like y'all like with the health industry stuff, like they really about selling you stuff like wild, crazy, mad money to pay for a bottle of kombucha is like $5, B. Man, I'm gonna get a Snapple, I'm Gucci, right? But they'll be like, oh, this is good for you, whatever. So cats be buying it and drinking it. And here's how I know it's not that good. Here's how I know, because a lot of y'all be posting pictures of drinking kombucha. I don't see like mad people like, yo, kombucha is great, it's delicious. Because if it was good, people would be saying it's good. But obviously it's not. And look, I drink ginger beer. I drink ginger beer all day, all my life. You know what I mean? But with that kombucha, y'all bugging, man. I need to chill with that stuff. Don't let these cats tell you because it's healthy that it tastes good. A lot of stuff that's healthy don't taste good. That's why a lot of people don't eat it. Stop fronting, man. Word is born. But yo, stop trying to make me think kombucha is good. It's not, man. Stop posting it on your TLs. Word. Yo, shout out to Steph again from the Dope Science Show about this Black Lightning. If you haven't been watching it, I don't know where y'all been at. You gotta watch the show. I'm behind on it, but it's an amazing show. It's on the CW network, and it's just from the top to bottom. It's just really dope how they did it and how they put it together. Like I can't explain just how dope it is and how much I love it. I'm watching it with my daughter, so it's actually like I didn't think it was gonna be. Let me be frank. I never liked Black Lightning from the comic book. I'm not a DC guy, I'm a Marvel guy. So let me just put that up front. So me and my daughter started watching it because we like watching a lot of superhero stuff. She's a Birds of Prey fan. So it just, the representation is just dope. Soundtrack is dope. Acting is dope. Writing is dope. They got Cress Williams starring as Black Lightning. I'm not gonna front. When I saw that casting, even though I like Cress Williams, I love him, I just didn't think he was gonna have the physicality for it. But he does so well. But who I love the most is the two young ladies that play his daughters, China Ann McClain and Nafessa Williams. Nafessa Williams. Anyway, I think that they just do a dope job. And they got my girl Christine Adams in it too. Oh my God, she's just bad. Oh my God. And they just have a great stellar cast. I mean, I can go on and on about who they have on here. But I think what speaks to my heart the most is that Black Lightning, or Jefferson Pierce, right? He is a school principal, and they live in a city where there's a lot of violence, a lot of gang violence, a lot of drugs, a lot of prostitution, and somehow he creates a safe zone where his school is, where the drug dealers can't come in there, whatever. He has this agreement with them, but I just like the fact that he's an educator, and he not to give away any spoilers, but the show takes place like 10 years after he quit being Black Lightning. So he was Black Lightning, and his wife was like at one point saying, you can't do this no more because you're coming home hurt. What about our girls? So he gives it up and he decides to fight, to keep the fight going as an educator. He becomes a teacher and then eventually a principal. And then like he feels like he saves more lives in that aspect. So they deal with that. And I think that, in the first couple of episodes of the series, they deal with that. And I think this is really dope. And I just really it really speaks to my heart. So I love it because it deals with Black Lives Matter. It deals with respectability politics. It deals with police brutality. It deals with poverty rates. It deals with school disparities. I could go on and on and on and on. And ladies and gentlemen, take notes. This is how you do social justice. Like if you want to do a TV show or a movie, and you want to deal with fictional characters or superheroes even, and you want to deal with social justice, this is how you do it. This is how you put it down. It has to be like make it like subplots to the overarching story. That's how you do that. It's big up to everybody. And CW be faking the funk, but I give y'all props for this one. Word. Shout out to my man Zemo. We were talking on the phone the other day, and we talked about G.U.R.U from Gangstarr, Gifted Unlimited Rhymes Universal, also known as Keith E. Elam. Shout out to Royce, who on Prime 2, he did a whole thing on called This Is Black History on really Gangstarr. So I thought that was really dope. It was a dope tribute to him. And my man Zemo and I talked about, and I'm a big G.U.R.U fan because I think his voice is just it really does it for me. But he, as an MC, he wrote really, really, really well. He wrote really, really well. And to be honest, Gangstarr has never put out a whack album. All they joints are hot. And then G.U.R.U went on to do 3 Jazzmatazz albums on his own that they hold their own. Volume 3, but Volume 1 and 2, Volume 2 with Jazzmatazz is fucking dope. Anyway, when we talk about hip hop artists, nobody really bigs them up. For those of you that don't know who G.U.R.U is, I highly recommend you listen to the Gangstarr joints. You probably already heard them joints because his voice gets sampled a lot. But you probably heard some of the joints that didn't know that was him. So I highly recommend it. Really, their first single was Manifest. That joint, I play it all the time. It's timeless, and I keep playing it, and I always play it. And, all the way to the stuff from, the 10 years, the greatest hits joints they did, because they put some new joints on there. And I mean, just consistently, G.U.R.U always laid it down when it came to the pen. And he never gets mentioned, man. And I think that's messed up that he doesn't. They don't even talk about. And what I mean by that, I could see top 10 lists, because again, those things are very subjective and they could kind of change, and people have different. They have different sets of criteria than maybe the next person might have. And none of us can agree on that. But when it comes to legends and legendary status, he's not mentioned. And I think it's important that he is. Don't pay attention to me. The work speaks for itself. Pick up anything with the chain and the star on it. And just listen to it, man, if you think I'm tripping. So last week, I talked about domestic violence, and I'm going to keep talking about it. I know some people, and trigger warning. This is a trigger warning. So just letting y'all know, I talk about some things that might trigger some stuff, and it's triggered for me, right? But if you don't want to, go ahead and fast forward. And again, my apologies. But anyway, one of my old mentees hollered at me. He lives in Indiana. He was talking about the city he lived in. He was saying how he knew a bunch of guys that had these domestic violence charges, and they never hit their partner, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I'll be the first to say, anytime law enforcement or the media says somebody did something, particularly they black and brown, I never believe that shit. I just let you know that off the top, right? Because I just seen too many cats get railroaded, too many sisters and brothers get railroaded. So I don't unless there's like video evidence, and I'm like, all right, then you know. But a lot of times when they say you did something, I don't believe it. But domestic violence is a completely different crime, and here's why it's a completely different crime, right? Number one, it usually is an intimate partner violence. It happens between two individuals that have some kind of history together, right? It's different from, say, and that's why it's called domestic violence, right? If me and my partner get into a fight, like a straight up fight, that's considered domestic violence, right? Whereas if me and my best friend get into a fight, that's considered assault, right? Assault and battery sometimes, right? If I go into a bar and I fight with somebody, that's assault and battery, right? If me and my brother, my blood brother, fight, that's assault and battery. But if me and my partner, we get into a fight, it's domestic violence. So it's actually a different crime. They had to actually create a different law for it, right? Anyway, that being said, I know in some cities, not all, and I can't speak for everybody, it doesn't happen here where I'm at, but I know I've been in some cities where police officers have told me, right, and lawyers and judges have told me that if they get a domestic violence call, right, and it's not in every city, I'm gonna say this again, that they have to arrest somebody, and then a lot of times they end up charging them because sometimes the police officer will walk in and somebody got a black eye, right, or somebody has a bruise, so they didn't witness it, but they're like, we're gonna charge you with domestic violence, and sometimes they knock it down to battery, to a misdemeanor, right? That being said, I don't know what all those cases are in the city that my mentee is from. I don't know. But my first question is, who called the police officers, right? Who called them? Because I feel, that in most cases, if I'm calling the police, some wild shit went down. Because I don't even call them. Like, if I get into something with my neighbor, I'm going to handle it, and I'm not a violent person. I'm just saying that I'll be like, hey, let's talk this out. If we call the police, that means that it's out of my hands, right? And I also know that if I call the police, it gotta be some wild shit, because I don't just be calling the police for shit like that, right? I've had a break-in, once or twice. I go down to the police station and I file a report and I do all that. I don't call the police, because I don't trust them, right? So, and I'm not saying everybody's like that, because not everybody's like that. I know people that call the police at the jump, right? But I feel that if somebody called the police, it got wild crazy in there, and when I mean wild crazy, I mean like bad. So somebody did it. Who did it? And how did it get to that point? That's the second question. How did it get to that point? Okay, we arguing, and we done, right? Because I don't know about y'all, but that's how I argue. We done, whether the issue was resolved or not. And what I mean by that is, we get into argument about something, a particular bill or whatever, and then we end the argument, whether it gets resolved or not. It's because there's no need for us to go 20 minutes arguing. I think that's a waste of time. I haven't done that since, I can't remember a time when I argue with somebody for 20 minutes. I don't even argue with customer service, but that's me. So what happened where it escalated to obviously threats of violence, right? Which is still violent. And I had to point that out to you. A threat of violence is still violent. You could still, if I walk up to somebody in the street and say, I'm going to kill you, I get arrested for that. If I go to my job and I threaten one of my coworkers or punching them in the mouth, I can get fired for that. It's a threat of violence. So that threat of violence is still violent. So did it get to that point? Because I tell you what, if you keep calling the cops over and your mate keeps threatening you, your partner keeps threatening you, the police at one point are going to say, you know what, we're taking you with us because it's clear that you keep saying this. So that's the question I always ask, because domestic violence is a different crime. And the crazy, again, like I said in the last show, domestic violence is like stealing office supplies. A lot of people do it. You know what I'm saying? It's just that a lot of people don't own up to it. So that's why it's a very personal issue with a lot of people, because a lot of motherfuckers do it, and there's a lot of victims out there. So I always hear people say, I ain't never put my hands on her. And yo, shout out to T with Q and J, because they pointed something out to me. They said that if me and my wife get into one spat and I put my hands on her, that's domestic violence. We like to think of domestic violence as a continual thing that happens over the years. That too, that's domestic violence too. But also, if I put my hands on her just one time, if I slap her, that's domestic violence. And we got to be clear on that. So you might not have hit her that time, but you probably hit her another time, and the police are like, yo, we're giving you a warning. Again, I don't know what the cases are, but I always find it fishy that when there's a domestic violence charge, people always claim you're innocent. when obviously something escalated and somebody felt unsafe enough to call the police. And I'm going to leave it at that. Word. It's funny because I hear people say all the time, oh, nobody talks to each other no more because of cell phones and social media, and of course there's an old fogey doing that, right? We have learned that actually because of social media, people talk to each other more often. They communicate with each other more often, even if their relatives and friends are long distance, because of apps like, Skype, WhatsApp, and all those things that allows you to keep in contact with people. And a lot of those things are free. Right, a lot of those apps are free, so people stay in contact more. Now, people will always argue and say, well, when I get online somewhere, people are on their phones. Well, why not? Why? Don't get me wrong. I'm the type of person that if I went to the bank and I got in a long line, I talk to people because I'm extroverted like that. I talk to everybody. I see somebody I know, hey, what's up? Or somebody I don't know, I strike up a conversation. That's me. And I think I talk about this and how to approach women all the time. I'm just a very good conversationalist. Actually, I'm going to say I'm a great conversationalist, right? As you can tell on my podcast, right? I know I'm not modest at all, but most people aren't. And most people really, to be honest, when they go to the bank, they go to the line at the supermarket, they really don't want to be bothered with the person next to them, to be quite honest. And it's not because they don't like that person. It's just they don't. They rather talk to the people that they know and they love via the cell phone, right? It's funny because working with young people, I noticed that a lot of times they'll be on Snapchat or they'll be on FaceTime with somebody consistently. I see my kids do it. They'll be on FaceTime while they're washing dishes, and they'll be on FaceTime while they're doing their homework and not really speaking to each other. And it's funny. I always be like, why do you do that? But that's just how young people communicate. I don't have an issue with it as long as you're not doing it at work or in the middle of school. I guess you're okay, right? But we got to be careful on blaming social media for stuff that's always been around. People, again, I remember a time when there wasn't cell phones or social media, and I would get in line or whatever, and nobody would speak to each other, right? New York is a good example of that, right? You get on the train, nobody speaks to each other. There are people in New York City and places like that where, Chicago, that they sit, you might sit with next to the same person for 15 years and not even know their name. That's been proven, actually. And it's because people just don't want to be bothered, and that's A-okay. So let's stop blaming social media for that.
As I come back, bullets for best don't leave like Aquafina trash, nigga. You shot to swell you bigger than Katina ass, nigga. Got couple left for opio and A+, watch how the gauge bust. As I come back, hey Bobolina, Mr. Bob Dobalina ass, nigga. Back to get quicker and then I spit him at.
Again, Netflix represents with the hip-hop documentary series Rapture. Man, I'm actually impressed. I just learned that it was executively produced, and I think he's a showrunner, by Satcher Jenkins. You don't know who Satcher Jenkins is? Ego Trip. You got to check him out. He is the man. So he's a showrunner on it and executive producer. So far, I've watched, it's actually a docuseries. It's not like one documentary. And they're usually about 50 to 60 minutes long each. Right now, they have about 8 episodes. I watched the Just Blaze one. That was episode 7. And I watched the Nas and Dave East one. That's episode 2. So it's getting a lot of critical acclaim. I love it because it's not your typical documentary where it's linear, like starts at point A, ends at point Z. They go back and forth, and to me, it's more like a conversation, which I appreciate much more because it gets into the why, it gets into the how they put stuff together. You know what I'm saying? Like how it all got put together. So I think it's dope. But the Nas and Dave East joint, I like that one because they show how they put this one song together with my man from Hamilton. So it's actually really dope. And then the one with Just Blaze, it show about how he started, working with electronics and stuff like that, and going, from producer to tech guy and everything. So that's really dope. Highly recommend it. Check it out. I'm gonna try to finish the rest of it this week and probably give you an even more thorough review. But yeah, it's pretty dope. It's on Netflix. And definitely check it out. Word. Yo, real quick, because I don't really do self-help books, because a lot of those things, like the self-help stuff, is like, a lot of it is victim blaming. Also, you know, like, and we're gonna talk about the law of attraction in another segment, but also I noticed that like these self-help books are like, you could be a billionaire, you could find the partner of your dreams, you could find your dream job, and I kind of feel like you can do those things without the self-help books, and I'm not saying that there's some self-help stuff that I'm cool with. I think that like, because I kind of feel like you should always improve as a person every day, like constant elevation, as the gods used to say. They still say, right? Constant elevation. Like you should always seek to improve yourself on different levels. But I think like a lot of these books try to sell it as you get this book and all your shit will be answered. And it sucks that you go to like a bookstore and they have like sections of self-help books. But a lot of these dudes that do that stuff, man, especially like the churchy people, you know, like Joel Osteen and all of them. What's that one girl's name? I forgot her name, that white lady that has like mega church too. Like they do that stuff, man. And they just big pimping, man. They really are big pimping, man. Cause they like try to make their message like universal, but they be like mad conservative, you know what I mean? But anyway, all that stuff is whack, man. Like that stuff, again, that's another way they could just remove you from your money. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't get some sort of self-help. I'm not saying that we can't like improve our lives bit by bit, you know, but there's no one answer to everything. There's no one way to do all that, right? And we got to be careful of this stuff because a lot of these dudes out here, man, and some women, they snakes, man. They real big time snakes, man. And you know, check out what Tony Robbins did. Work. And you know, like, yo, for real, fuck Tony Robbins, for real. Like, that dude is scary, man. And he's probably like, if I had issues, because I have a lot of issues with self-help gurus, he's probably like, when I think of the issues that I have with self-help gurus, I think of him automatically. Anyway, there's a video of him circulating around the internet where he pretty much points out why we need a Me Too movement, right? A young woman comes up there and talks about the Me Too. You know, he critiques the Me Too movement. Oh, it's victimhood, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which was this funny thing about self-help. A lot of self-help gurus out there is that they do a lot of victim blaming. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but anyway, he goes on to explain how he has a good friend of his who makes a lot of money. He's like, you know, he just talks about how this guy is really powerful, and he interviews 3 people, and that one of them is a woman, and he doesn't hire the woman because, you know, she's like super attractive, which is like, you know, wild to me. Like, don't you hire people? First of all, that's sexist, right? Because you hire people based on their talent, right? Based on their skills. That's what you're supposed to do, even though we know that's not true. But that's what we say. We say we hire people based on talent, right? It's supposed to be how meritocracy works. But then he admits that he didn't hire her because of a woman. That's sexist. And number 2, because he understood that he has a hostile working environment, which is crazy because he's supposed to be in charge of that working environment. Am I right? Am I wrong? Right? So Tony Robbins actually points out how the Me Too movement is important. I thought that was wild to me. And then he does his physical demonstration to the woman who brings this up. And it's very, I mean, you don't even need to listen to the words. It's very intimidating. It's very aggressive, right? And it's kind of like, instead of trying to prove, you know, instead of listening to her, which, you know, you would think he would do because he's supposed to be like this self-help guru, he actually doesn't. And it's really wild to watch how people walk back. And you know, and that's what male privilege is. Male privilege is we have these blind spots because we are not victims, meaning we don't have to worry about people sexually harassing us. We don't have to worry about our talents being based on our gender. And what I mean by that is because I'm a man, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. Whereas a woman, she has to be like twice as good as the man to get that. And it sucks and it's crazy. And what's crazy is that a lot of people are defending Tony Robbins. Of course they will, of course, you know. But I think what it is that it's one of those things where people are like, yo, he's a dickhead in this instance. And you got to kind of like trying to defend him because if you don't, then pretty much all the other shit he said before you can't defend, which you really can't. But I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but just watch that video. It's triggering for some people. Watch the whole 10-minute video. I'm flabbergasted because it's like he literally proves why you need the Me Too movement. And I think that it's crazy to watch, because I could see if he vehemently denied it and was like, nah, that's not true, it doesn't happen, it's over exaggeration. Because most of the arguments that I'm getting from other men is that, you know, we're going to get a lot of men who are innocent get caught up in it, or somebody's going to blame me, or whatever. So that's the argument that I'm hearing with Me Too. Or the other argument is it's not true. Like, all this stuff is not true, which we need to talk about, right? Because that's also very dismissive and it's fucked up. But anyway, he actually, like, I just can't believe that he's like, no, I disagree with the Me Too movement, and then he proves why you need the Me Too movement, and it's just like, it's mind-boggling. Like, he doesn't even see it. But again, he's a huge egomaniac, right? And he created this cult of personality, and he has to believe in that cult of personality for him to continue to function as Tony Robbins, right? He's even been in movies playing himself. Like, I've seen him in movies where, I'm not saying he made a decision, but whoever directed or wrote those films were like, we need to put him in it as Tony Robbins, and he plays himself really well, of course, right? It makes sense, right? So it's just crazy to watch. Mind-boggling. Please watch it. One more thing about Black Panther. In my top 10 MCU movies, I rated Black Panther number 2. And I got a lot of people like hitting me up for that. Like, yo, what's up with that? Why didn't you give it number 1? Well, there's 2 reasons. Those 2 reasons why I didn't. I know people are going to be like, yo, but they done. But here we go. Reason number 2 is that, and I'm doing it in ascending order. Number 2 is that they never really explained how T'Challa survived that drop. Like, you know, like, we knew he was going to come back because it was like halfway through the movie, right? It just makes sense, right? Plus, we've seen the trailers for Infinity War. He was in it. So, but we know, he's the protagonist. Who kills the protagonist in a movie, right? So they never really explained how he survived. You know, first of all, he got, you know what I mean? Like, homie beat the shit out of him, right? Then threw him off that waterfall. Okay, he could have survived. I give him that. He could have survived, right? But then he didn't drown. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, he could have survived the initial fall, but he should have drowned. He was unconscious, right? But somehow he floated all the way upstream to the mountains, and somebody found him. He did not die of exposure, even though he was like in a loincloth. But, you know, they never explained it. And, you know, it's a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. You know, it's Marvel. We gotta like bend our beliefs, right? We gotta do that, right? So I'm gonna let that slide. But number 1 is because, like a lot of people, I felt that he didn't get enough fight scenes. When you really look at it, he only had like a couple of fight scenes. You know, you look in the beginning when he fought those soldiers, when he fought in Baku, which was a pretty fast fight. And then when he fought, but he got his ass handed to him when he fought in the Jaka, right? So, like, you know, then the end, which that last fight scene was like CGI, so the third act was dope. It was probably one of the dopest, but it still didn't really do it for me when it came to him. Everybody else was dope. Like, all the other fight scenes were dope, but he just, you know, T'Challa, you know what? He kicked ass in Civil War. Like, he was whipping dudes' asses in Civil War. You know what I mean? Like, he was like very formidable, right? But then Winter Soldier had, the choreography was just amazing. And to me personally, as a martial artist and sometimes stuntman, I don't get paid for it. But they really made me step up my game. It really, like, I was like, man, I got to step up my game on all levels. Weapons, you know, capoeira, you know, boxing. It made me step up my game and all that. So for a movie to do that for me, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it really made me say, hey, I could do those things. Like, I could be in that kind of movie. You know what I'm saying? I could do those things. So that's what Winter Soldier did for me personally. But that's it right there. I know some of y'all gonna be mad, but okay. So usually when people find out that I'm an atheist, they be like, what? You don't believe in God? You know, and you're like, yeah, that's what I said. I said I was an atheist, right? And then they usually respond with, so what do you believe in? And, you know, it's funny because, like, I can't think of another analogy for that'll fit this perfectly. But we have this idea that we're raised, all of us are raised, because all of us are raised theists, right? None of us live like in an atheist nation, right? All of us are raised theists, so we think that by default, everybody should be believing in something, right? So, whether you believe in Jesus or Allah or whatever, they think that you should believe in something. And if you don't, there's, clearly something wrong with you. And that's kind of like what that question implies, right? Like, so what do you believe in? And, what is your response? You're like, I don't know. Like, I want to say I don't know, right? And here's why I want to say I don't know, because it's like, I don't believe in God. So what do you want me to say? Like, what is it that you want me to say that's going to satisfy you? And I know that if I say something like, I believe in nothing, that's asinine, right? That doesn't really answer the question. It doesn't really in my opinion, it doesn't answer the question. Because the thing is, a lot of times people ask you these questions, you don't want to get into the whole thing, right? Well, how did you become an atheist? Well, were you molested? They ask you all these crazy questions. So a lot of times you just, be like, oh, I'm going to talk about it or whatever. But sometimes, I want to be an asshat. And it does come off, you do come off like an ass when you say, well, I don't believe in nothing, But what answer would satisfy somebody that wants to ask that question? So I kind of feel like it's kind of like if somebody was to walk up to you and you'd be like, yo, I don't eat hot dogs. No one's going to be like, well, what do you eat? And it's like, I think that's the analogy I should use. Like, I don't eat hot dogs. I don't eat pork. I don't eat, donuts, well, I do eat donuts, but just saying like nobody says, well, what do you eat then? And it's kind of like the same idea. Just because I don't believe in God doesn't mean, just because you believe in God doesn't mean I should believe in something, right? You don't have to. So I think if you ask me, I'm an atheist, and I say, yeah, I am, if you want to ask, how did you come to that, point in your life? That's cool, but I don't think you should ask, what do you believe in? Like, what the fuck does that mean? So I just wanted to address that, because when people find out you're an atheist, you get asked a lot of stupid questions. And I think, to me, in my opinion, that's probably the dumbest one you can ask. Next to, do you worship the devil or do you eat babies? Because I think that's totally ridiculous. I don't know where that came from. I'm pretty sure your religious layperson, your priest, your pastor said that shit to you. So, word. For this health segment, this is actually for the people that are quote unquote healthy, like the people that eat well and train well and do what they're supposed to do, all that stuff. Like, this is for y'all. Don't be a dickhead. Don't be an asshole. That's pretty much what I got to say. Like, don't be like that dude or that woman that comes into a party and just starts condemning people for eating a steak. Like, don't do that. Like, don't get on people for eating a donut. Like, look, I'm the last person to be like, eat a donut. Like, I don't do that. But at the same time, we shouldn't condemn people. And it does two things. Number one, it ostracizes ourselves, right? The people that are supposed to be healthy, right? Because if you're known as that person that's annoying, nobody wants to be that person. Nobody wants to be like, oh, I'm going to be a vegan now. Let me be an ass. Nobody wants to be that way. And it kind of creates this idea that we're all like that. I'm not a vegan, by the way. But which, in the long term, what it does is that it closes people's minds up to that kind of stuff, right? So, like, if somebody, and here's an example. Like, I work with young people, and they'll come into class, and it'll be 8 in the morning, and they'll be drinking soda, and they'll say, oh, I got a stomach ache, and and I'll say, hey, what you might want to do, you might want to lay off that soda, because that's probably what's upsetting your stomach. Now, I don't be like, oh, you dumb idiot, stop drinking soda, you fool, you stupid. Like, I don't do all that. I just kind of suggest it, and then take it from there. Half the time they don't listen to me, and half the time they do, which is all love. It's ultimately it's their decision, it's their right, their money, they can do what they want. And trust me, there are people that joke me for eating healthy, which is cool. We always joke things that we don't know, and it's all love. I can take it as much as I can dish it out. But a lot of times those folks come back around and ask me questions that they're really trying to help understand, right? So what we need to be is we need to be more open, right? We need to really pay attention and listen, and a lot of people are going to come ask you for help. And then that's your opportunity to be like, hey, this is what I do, because let me just say this, just because you might be a gym junkie or you might do XYZ when it comes to eating or being healthy, doesn't mean it's for everybody. It's not for everybody. What I do is not for everybody. I eat like a hermit. like a Buddhist monk. That's Ali like that, right? And for a lot of people, that's not how they get down, and that's perfectly okay. That's all love. That's just good for me and how I get down. So it doesn't make me better than anybody. It makes me smarter. So I shouldn't come off that way. I'm not superior. I don't know any information more than anybody else. This information has been around forever. So don't act like you're brand new and now you're an evangelical. Like, don't do that. So this goes out to y'all. Just don't be assholes. Word.
This is a man's world, but it would be nothing without. This is a man's world.
Part 3, QVC, sip lime Bacardi, heavy on the list, you blink my ice ring, John we bring, yeah that's small thing, COD, part 3, QVC, sip lime Bacardi.
Peace, party people. For this how to approach women segment, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit because what happened was somebody actually DM'd me, and they talked about somebody that they was really feeling. A gentleman, he was feeling this woman that he likes. They work in the same building, they just work in different departments. And what happened is he usually sees her during lunchtime. They eat lunchtime together. So he was asking me how he should approach her, whatever. And then I asked him a question. I said, do you know her? Like, meaning, do you know her name? Have you guys like been introduced to each other? And he said yes. He said yes. Like they've actually sat at the same table with a bunch of different coworkers. So my advice to him was to just shoot your shot. Like I would, what I would do is if I would see her at lunchtime, I would say, hey, can I take a minute to talk to you? Preferably not at lunchtime. Like don't ask her during lunchtime. Like pick a different time. Say, hey, can I talk to you over here? On our break or whatever. Maybe go outside for a walk. And I would ask her. I'll say, hey, this is not exactly how I would word it, but I would tell her, hey, I'm feeling you. I was wondering if we can go on a date, and just keep it. It is that simple. It is that simple. Again, you could do it at lunchtime if you want, but again, she might be around people. You don't want nobody know your business. I know I wouldn't. But that's what I would do. I would go ahead and just approach her. If you already know her, so you're like the battle is halfway won. You know what I'm saying? So like you already know her, so just go up to her, tell her how you feel, and ask her out on a date. And that's it. And chances are she'll say yeah. We'll see. Unless she got a man already or she's in a situation. But that'd be my advice to you, sir. Just shoot your shot. Keep it simple. If you want to. You can go to YouTube and punch in where my killer tape at, and you'll find my old episodes. And you can just follow the information that I have there. I've always said keep it simple. I've always said get straight to the point, and I've always said shoot your shot. I hope that helps you, brother. And if everything goes well, keep me updated. Word. Because if y'all get married and stuff, like I know that's a wedding I can go to get turned up. Word. Yo, once again, shout out again to my man Zemo for that last minute idea, man. Love you, bro. I miss you. Love your family too, man. Also, shout out to my barber, Woke Dave. Once again, I asked him to switch up my hair because he did a dope job, man. Love you, brother. And shout out to my man, Humanity Critic, who I keep calling. He don't be calling me back. I got an idea for you, brother. And shout out to my man, Billy Wheels. I'm going to be having him on the show soon. So check that out for real. Shout out to my girl Anita, who owns Third Perk Coffee House. She be doing her thing, man. She do a lot of dope events out there. So shout out to you. Word is born. And we out.
Yes. The name of the game is life works. Night of the slips. The name of the game is life works.
And we out, party people. Thank y'all for listening. Yo, I love my audience, man. I'm realizing that I'm getting about, let me see, when I look at the numbers, I'm getting about 1,200 listens per month, which is dope, and that's accumulated. So I really appreciate y'all for that. If you want to hit me up on the Twitters, you could DM me at Omi's Podcast, OMIS Podcast. You could also hit me at Dantrez Omi, DANTRESOMI. Also, man, check out my man Sekou. I forgot to big him up on Fly Guys Podcast. He pretty much has me there every other week. So check it out. It's on YouTube. It's really dope, but it's also on Apple Podcasts. So check it out there. I'm there as much as possible. So I'm out here doing my thing. I look crazy because he for some reason he wants to do video, and I look crazy. But check it out there. Also, if you want to, donate money because I need cash, so you guys can have everything on SoundCloud. You could get me on Cash App at $ Slim Dominican Gray, and Gray spelled G.R.U.Y. I might have some merch by the end of the month. It's currently April. I'm trying to get some merch in there. There's going to be some coffee mugs. So look out for that. And I'm working on a t-shirt. So look out for that as well. But because I feel like y'all should, if y'all going to pay for something, y'all should get something back on top of, my content. So, thank y'all for my audience. I love y'all. I love the feedback. Hashtag Where My Killer Tape at, KILLA. Word. And we out.